I am Jim Collison, live from the Gallup studios here in Omaha, Nebraska. This is Gallup's Theme Thursday, Season 4, recorded on August 2nd, 2018. Theme Thursday is a Gallup Webcast series that dives deep into the Clifton Strengths theme, one theme at a time. And today is Futuristic. If you have questions, comments, or contributions during this live webcast, we do have a chat room that's available for you right below the main video window. If you just go down there, somebody tried to move it to the side, and I said, nope, it's got to be below it, because for 100 of these videos, I've said below the video window. It's right down there. Choose a login, bottom left-hand corner. Choose the guest account. Put your name in where it says guest. Take those numbers out. Hit submit, and you're in. We'll be taking your questions. Particularly important for Theme Thursday because we do all questions in the post show. So you want to stay around. If you're listening live, that's the way to communicate with us. You can also pop that chat room out. Upper right-hand corner is two little red boxes. If you want to click on that, it'll pop out. You can put it anywhere on your screen. Super handy, works on mobile as well. If you're listening to the recorded version or have questions about custom strengths coaching solutions, send us an email for anything, coaching@gallup.com. Don't forget to visit the Gallup Strengths Center. Just GallupStrengthsCenter.com for all your Clifton Strengths coaching resources and training needs. You can also catch the video and downloadable audio for offline listening. We call that podcasting. Available for you now. It's all on our coaches blog. Go to coaching.gallup.com. Maika Leibbrandt is our host today. She works as a workplace consultant here at Gallup. I wish it was on the riverfront, but she's another part of the country. Maika, welcome back to another Theme Thursday.
Thanks, Jim. Great to be back. I feel like things are back sort of in the swing of things.
Yeah, sort of back to normal, maybe? Do you think, post-summit?
Yeah, but if I had Futuristic, I would say by next week, they'll be sort of back to normal.
Sort of back to, it's weird. We've been doing budgeting for next year already. And so I've been thinking about, I haven't even got my interns out for this summer, and we're already planning next summer's. And I was like, hey, did I miss Christmas? So, maybe that's
Was Christmas good?
Maybe that's the world of someone who has high in Futuristic, is that you're already a year ahead in some cases. But that's not just me. Let's work through the definition of this. What is it? And let's dive in.
Futuristic, a strategic thinking theme. I think about futuristic as being every step I take today gets me closer to the very clear vision I have for the future. I also think about it being that's where I live. So right now I'm just paddling almost backwards. It's like the present is the past if you have futuristic. It's about making sense of what is through a lens of what will be. And futuristic is not just creativity. There is, I think, an innovative element to it, but it's not what if as much as it is when. People with high futuristic are energized and also energizing to others by what can be. So other themes are going to influence the exact picture that you have of the future if you lead with futuristic, but always futuristic does always tend to bring with it this element of improvement, a better team, a better product, a better life, a better world. I think it's also very important, I think, to pay attention to the themes around it, but futuristic itself is about sort of hopefulness and energy toward what will be in the future.
Elizabeth in the chat room says, futuristic 2, love planning. Love to travel, and when I'm planning to travel, it's like a pre-experiencing my trip. I love that idea of this.
Whoa.
Thinking about, hey, I'm going to go on vacation, and as you are doing the planning, it's so in depth, or you're so in the moment, or so in focus that it's like you're pre-experiencing it. So that's awesome. Let's think about those terms, Maika, when we're at our best with this. Where are we?
I love that idea of pre-experiencing. So I'm going to follow that path, Liz. Actually, Tom Rath has written a little bit about the idea of anticipation and how it's really a great element of boosting your well-being instead of just being surprised by something that we all, whether we have futuristic or not, benefit even more by thinking about what something's going to be like, what it's going to taste like, how it's going to feel. And so the idea, you can make that real whether you have futuristic or not by helping other people understand what's about to come. That might mean scheduling out your vacations for a year, or it might mean daydreaming about, again, a better product, a better team, a better life. For those of us with futuristic, the value you bring is being able to help others anticipate. So it could be pulling folks out of frustration that they might have with the current state by painting a picture of where we're headed. I very clearly remember our chairman and CEO, Jim Clifton, in sort of the doldrums of a really rough period almost 10 years ago now, giving a state of the company address that was all about 10 to 20 years in the future. And it wasn't dismissive of the challenges we were having at the time. And by we, I mean the world. But it was acknowledging that, but also not wanting to go deeper there, because where we could go into the future was so much more hopeful in terms of building our way out of that difficulty. I think the value that you bring with Futuristic is being energized by possibility, tackling projects for what they build toward, not just for what they finish. I also think about it as the ability to, and this might take some intentional focus or maybe some other themes, but Futuristic has the ability to minimize emotional weight. So the weight and heaviness of ambiguity or chaos or scarcity or anger, I think, can be lessened if you are able to change people's focus. So taking that from I'm disturbed by what's going on, taking that to, I want to energize you about where we're going. And again, it's not flighty or dismissive, but it is just a very real relationship with the future.
We're spending most of this season talking about success. So what can we do more of with Futuristic?
Raise your hands for opportunities to make the future even more clear for yourself and for others. That might mean talking, researching, reading, brainstorming with other people out loud about what your team could be, what your project could be, what your community will be. Also think about finding ways to connect today to tomorrow. So get in touch with what's occupying the brain space of people around you. How does their current concern or their current excitement translate into the future that you see? So a little bit of that is about building relevance or planting seeds of relevance from your vision into the minds of other people. Also think about talk about it. Opportunities for you to use that Futuristic is to focus on those times when you're excited. Your energy for the future is something that we desperately need. It's going to help unplug people who are stuck and inspire people who maybe don't even know they need that extra nudge.
Maika, futuristic strategic thinking, but it sounds like there's some influencing. When we think about these two, right, there's a little bit about changing people's minds about the future, or as you've thought through or thinking through things in advance, right? That process is strategic thinking.
Yeah.
But the outcomes often can look very influential. In other words, thinking through that to give people hope of what could be for the future. Can you talk a little bit about when we get a theme that may cross these two kind of domains? Talk a little bit about that.
So maybe first I'll talk about that, and then I want you to remind me to talk about maybe we're stumbling onto something else, which is good. But yeah, I think all these themes, when you think about their domains, the barriers between those domains are more like curtains and less like walls. There's, of course, certain themes that you could see very clearly landing in more than one of those domains. With Futuristic, I was just listening to season 1, which is where we get to hear Jeremy Petrosini and Rosie Liesfeld talk about Futuristic. They both have it in their top 5. And one of the things that both of them hit on is part of the definition. It is being able to see the future and inspire others about it. So there is, in some way, that in that influencing space of, it's not just that I can see where we're going, it's that I can be the leader, the oracle to get us there. Now, the second part of that I wanted to talk about is perhaps we're stumbling upon a connection between how to lead or how to take a theme from potential into performance, how to really get to success. Maybe it's to look across those themes and not just be able to use one theme in its domain, but be able to say, how does this theme help me achieve the outcomes of those other domains as well?
Yeah, kind of a maturity model, right?
It is. I think it comes back to things we've talked about previously of real maturity in your strengths or real investment in your strengths doesn't just benefit you. It's not about the me, but the we. And I'm not suggesting that you should strive to be all things to all people. But I do think if you can take a look at the natural patterns that you do lead with and wonder how they can serve in other ways, that's how you're building your complexity, your ability, your skill set really as a leader and as a mature team member.
Yeah, and there may be some other themes, some other that are high in influence when paired with strategic that make it look more influential than strategic thinking. I mean, it's still part of it, but my communication may be one who's constantly talking about the future. I don't have futuristic high, but if I did, that communication may have an influence that I do it through thinking through it. where futuristic with analytical may really drive more to just a thinking exercise than it is about influence. Do you think?
Let's also talk about the focus of this very season on our podcast is not just defining futuristic, but it is how do you drive that towards success. And through my 10 years of coaching, I found that coaching people with high futuristic, one of the coaching challenges or the obstacles that I like to help them get over and then accelerate is how do you get the vision for your future out of your head and into a place that it's going to lead you to success and lead other people to success. You could probably be very successful with futuristic and never talk about it to others, but that very act of getting it out of your head still needs to happen, whether that's translating and talking about it or using your vision to set your own goals and never saying a word of it to somebody else. It still needs to get you somewhere. If it's just this fascination with the future that doesn't translate to performance, then it stays in that area of untapped potential.
I think that's a great transition into this idea of what environments support that well. Like, what do we need to ask for?
I think ask for goals that you know will matter in the future. Remember, you know the future better than anyone else. You have this relationship with the future that other people might not have. So ask yourself how far into that future on a literal timeline. So is it a year? Is it 10 years? Is it 5 years? How far into the future are you most comfortable? And then back up and make sure that your current expectations, what you're paid to do, what success looks like for you really does connect. Will they land you there? Do you see and believe the relevance there? Now, this might be less of what should you ask for and how can you curate an environment like that, because you will have a great understanding of what the future is. And sometimes people who are setting your expectations don't have that same relationship with the future. So it might mean, hey, sit down with your manager, sit down with your team and say, this is where I know we're going. Let's make sure that my expectations today are going to align with that.
What about, this has been a great question throughout the series when we think about worrying less, because sometimes, there's just actually some conversation going on right now that Eduardo mentions, he says, my challenge is to remind myself not to speak into a future that is too far ahead. And so I think we need to sometimes give ourselves permission to worry less about things. When we're high in futuristic, what can we worry less about?
You know what? You might not be great at practicality. Futuristic casts this fishing hook into the future, but it doesn't necessarily follow the line back to the start. It doesn't necessarily sort out every step that it's going to take to get there. And you don't have to be that person who says, here's the big glowing dream of where we're going, and here's absolutely how we get there. Maybe you can have partners who help you do that. You might find that you're bored by talking about those sort of backward looking goals as well, like finishing something that you started that you just don't find important anymore. And so I think let that go, admit that it doesn't inspire you. If it's becoming a weakness or if it's getting in your way or the way of others, have some transparent communication about it.
I have a very specific form of futuristic for technology. So it's one of those, for me, it's one of those areas where I see the technology coming maybe 2 or 3 years ahead of where everybody else is at. And when you talk about letting things go, I would oftentimes, Maika, get super bent when I would go into a group. Of course, the woo and the communication wants to influence, right? And I would pull this futuristic in. I'd be like, guys, this is going to be so great. And no one would follow, right?
Yeah.
They'd be like, you're crazy. And then 2 or 3 years later, everybody would be doing it. And it would be like, this is the greatest thing ever. And I would get really resentful that I said, guys, I said this 2 or 3 years ago. I think I've had to mature a little bit. And I think when we think about worrying less with futuristic, of knowing people are not going to instantly buy in, and that it's going to be a long-term play. And I've got to be able to set some things in place, especially for me, to be okay with people not following right away, right? Change that expectation, mature into a spot where I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to throw this thing out there and I'm going to let it marinate. And I'm not going to get bitter that people don't jump on board right away. This summer, we did an exercise with our interns where we spent some time doing some cryptocurrency stuff, which is still very early technology that I think is going to be really important about a decade from now. But I can't get frustrated at the end of the summer when they kind of laugh at me like, well, that was kind of an okay gimmick, but who knows if we'll ever use this again. And so there's that maturity, right? Worrying less, I think, about people following and more about your own internal confidence to say, you know what, I'm going to wait for people to catch up. I don't know. Do you want to respond to that at all, Maika, in any way?
I wonder if that comes back to our point about it being a strategic thinking theme versus, Jim, you tend to dance a little bit more in the influencing where you do care about who's following you. You care and you notice. Futuristic might have a little bit less of a need for that, but we all like to be followed. We all like somebody to second our opinion. So I like your idea of, hey, set that down and understand that other people aren't seeing the future as clearly as you are. It also means that other people aren't trusting the future as clearly as you do. So this might be something separate, but think about yourself as being a tour guide to the future. They might not trust the future, but they might trust you. So how can you be that sort of safari guide who says, I'm going to build a relationship with you because I'm going to help you get to somewhere better?
Yeah. I think you need to have a few successes too for people to see that. That may take a while. You may have to have confidence to stay on track with it for a while because then people will come back and say, he or she was right about this. Mm-hmm. What other kinds of things, right? That's just not one where the theme just gets you there.
Right.
You've got to grow into that, right? You've got to build that trust and admit when you're wrong. Right? Futuristic does not always mean you have the right answer.
No, gosh, if you did, we'd just find out people had futuristic and pay them a lot to tell us what was going to happen, right?
Yeah, no, right on. Okay, when we're working with it, what can we expect? What should we look for? We've mentioned some of these, but let's go back through that.
If you're working with someone with high futuristic, expect bigger thinking than you're going to get from others. They might feel like they are stretching the expectations, or you might feel like they're stretching your expectations. You might feel like they are stretching the expectations you have of them. They're gonna expand your mind a little bit more than sometimes you might be comfortable doing. But also expect this sort of legacy building mindset. They might want to work from the curiosity, not just about what does success look like, but what kind of a difference is what I'm doing right now going to have on building the future that I want for myself and for others.
That futuristic, when we think of ideation too, those sound very similar, right?
Yeah.
And although ideation, I think, is kind of focused on today, futuristic is it can build that plan for the future. How do we recognize those? Because all this stuff is in the future and we can't predict.
Yeah.
Right. How do we recognize? What are some ways we can recognize folks?
Getting back to, Jim, what you mentioned about you might need to build some trust by displaying sometimes that futuristic has worked out. You can do the same for someone with futuristic by recognizing times that maybe they've seemed totally crazy, but ask yourself, gosh, when did their out of the box expectations lead our team to doing or being something better? When were these people just the nudge that we needed to get off center and move toward a goal? I also think don't just celebrate their work, but celebrate the courage behind their work. So this might be a way, if you can't remember something that they've done that just seemed crazy and then worked out, maybe a forward-looking way to do it is to celebrate the courage it takes for them to share their ideas. We really need to build stronger hardwiring lines into the future, and they already have this sort of direct connection with the future. So anytime those visions or those expectations make it back to earth, make it back to the rest of us, that is something to cherish and to ask for more of.
Yeah, I do think someone who can help connect those dots.
Mm-hmm.
And our CFO, Jim Krieger, has a saying that I quote all the time is, acting or thinking a little beyond Friday night, which is, is just an incredible thought that I think sometimes we just get locked into the day in and day out grind. And as a manager or as someone working with someone high in futuristic, I think it's important to keep track of those milestones a little bit, keep track of those future statements that we could come back to a year or two later. I think that almost takes more trust because it's a long-term play, right? We got to think about it for longer than just a week. And remember those things that those people said or thought or helped us with, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
How do we stretch? How do we grow in this area?
If you're trying to help somebody develop or get better and they have futuristic, I think your goal should be, how can you help them translate the future back to the present? And you might be able to do this in a couple ways. So here's just some ideas. You could give them more opportunities to talk about the future. You could ask for their input on where we could be going and how it could be better. You could help them understand the best ways to communicate what they see. Remember, this isn't necessarily a theme that ever makes it out of your head unless you try to, but that could be just through simply building their vocabulary, giving them better words, building their understanding of systems or infrastructure or processes. It might be through offering advice on, interpersonal communication. If you talk about this person will listen. If you talk about that, this person will listen. Helping them know, where do I nudge? How do I inspire? And how is it going to land the best?
James says in the chat room, I think futuristic brings resilience. And I think this, I've heard this term a lot recently. And I think maybe because Sheryl Sandberg has been talking about it. I think she wrote a book about it or something recently, blog post, something about resiliency, right? How those things in the past that have happened to us can build us, in some resilience. So as we think about futuristic and resilience, it can work in the opposite, I think. It's giving hope for what is in for the future, right? When we are stretching ourselves to be positive about what we see in the future, because I think it's easy to go negative too. Like you can turn this to the dark side as well, in a negative. Oh, it's never going to work. I can see the future and it's going to be terrible. There's some opportunities to really have a positive influence on that and to drive it forward in a positive way.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm not sure in our research of futuristic that the negative really shows up. If it's, I can see the future and it's going to be terrible. With futuristic, that's very quickly, I can see we're headed down the wrong path and here's a better one. Futuristic by itself does have that possibility bend to it. Maybe some other themes would be future looking and sort of cautious. But I think that maybe that relationship between resilience and hope is an important one to talk about. I think the multiplicity of futuristic, being able to say resilience is I've made it through and I'm okay. Maybe hope is we're going somewhere better tomorrow and I'm a part of it.
Mm-hmm. Well, we talked a little bit about this in season 1. You reminded me of that. That's a very significant season 1 finale. I think when we did that with Rosie, wasn't that right? Yeah. And we were thinking about, even in the day, we were thinking about how ironic that futuristic would land on the last theme as we were thinking about the future of what we were going to do with what we're going to do with Theme Thursday. Maika, you of course, you've been a big part of that with us, this journey of taking it to season 2. And that's, I think, if you haven't listened to season 1, especially futuristic of season 1, you owe it to yourself to go back. Rosie's got some great insights on that.
Good.
As we go forward. It also is some historical, I know this doesn't play to futuristic, but it's some historical context of where we were. And now you can kind of see the futuristic, we were thinking, Maika, actually, you and I spent a lot of time thinking about what the future could be. Here we are today, right? 4 seasons in, over 100 of these, because some of those futuristic thoughts that we had back in that day. So thanks for the reminder there on the negative aspects sometimes, right? Our research on these themes comes at it from positive psychology, right? Comes at it from from success, from talents that are successful, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's not just from what could be and how could we behave, but how does it work when it works is really what it is.
I don't think I've gotten as many phone calls as I've gotten in the last 10 minutes on Thursday. Everybody's trying to call me. Really? Yeah, it's really weird.
Show. You're doing a good job there.
Yes. So, well, let's talk about partnering. How do we support those with high futuristic?
Ask them what they see something becoming. So give the future the stage, hand the mic to the future for them. Just give them some space to talk about the future. Also talk about today in terms of tomorrow. So that might mean, hey, when we do this, here's where it's going to get us, not just we really need to do this. Also, this is important for partnering with anyone, but I especially think with futuristic, we all have a relationship with the future, right? If we don't, we probably have some other conversations we should have. But if we don't see ourselves in our own future, then right, other conversations we should have. We'll just leave it there. So I think because we all have that relationship, we all want to be a part of it. It becomes very important for us to know how we can offer our best to incorporate the future into today. If, for example, you're an activator, ask what can we start now that's getting us to the future. If you have high analytical, help this future thinker, this futuristic person, put some metrics and some details and some evidence to their vision for tomorrow. Look at what you have and how you can best offer something that's going to build together a better future for this person who can very clearly see it as your partner.
I love that. I love that because it really focuses on others, and when we think of trust and hope in these areas, man, that futuristic can be really, really powerful. We have some challenges for you, dominant, lesser themes, what we're going to go through. And I think some opportunities for those high in futuristic to really change and influence and to think through that. So let's talk about those, Maika.
Great. So our dominant theme challenge, I've gotten some feedback that, wow, I was already doing that. And you know what? I hope you were. The idea on dominant theme challenges is you should be doing more of it. How can you raise your hand to invest a little bit more in this talent? I've got 3. I also have high ideation, so I might add a 4th because I just thought of it. But we're going to start with the 3. If you want to follow along with these, they're always posted by the end of Thursday on Instagram at Strengths Talk. That's my Instagram account. You can check it out there. If somebody also wants to take the initiative to type these up and move them over to our Facebook group, it's Facebook groups called To Coach. Here they are, 3 of them. First, we're going to call Mastery Mindset. So put yourself into the future and ask, what is it you're going to need to be more skilled at or need more information about in order to have your best future? And then listen to a podcast, take a class, or read a book that gets you closer to mastering this. Number 2, flex your future casting. So I'd like you to journal in 3 different ways for a week. I want you to journal the future you see for the rest of this year, for 5 years from now, and for 10 years from now. So 3 separate journal entries. You don't have to do each one each day, but you just need some experience on journaling. What is it you see at different points in the future? Now, the more detail that you can have about these journal entries, the better. It's going to help you practice describing the future to others, as well as make it more vivid for yourself. As you're debriefing and thinking about that, I want you to pay attention to where your brain was most comfortable. Is it the rest of this year? Is it 5 years from now? Is it 10 years from now? Maybe it's something else. So there's a lot I think you can get from that one. Number 3, I want you to think about the effect that change has on others. So identify a change that your organization is going through right now and talk with someone in that organization about that change. Just hear them out, listen to them, ask them great questions about what they're going through right now. And then I want you to also ask about their future. So how is this change going to resonate into their future? And that, I think, is another great aspect of futuristic, how it can almost feel a little bit like a relationship building theme when you can start to ask other people about their futures.
That's a great, that 3rd one is dynamite.
Cool.
We're
going to stop with dynamite and not add the 4th idea that I had.
Oh, really? You sure?
Yeah, strategic.
Okay, we'll stick it. Well, maybe in the post show. Let's flesh that one out in the post show.
Maybe.
We have a lesser theme. For those of us who don't have it high, what are some challenges we can do during the week?
If you don't have futuristic and it's a problem, I think your challenge is to think about how you can determine direction and inspires other to act. So I've got 2 challenges for you if futuristic is a lesser theme. One, I want you to think, when was the last time that you were certain about a goal or a plan? You can go as far back in your own history as you need to, but look for a time when you knew you were making the right step, and then ask yourself, what was it that led to that certainty? Depending on the themes that you are leading with, it might be about other people, it might be about research, it might be about some sort of metrics, it might be about something you learned, it might be about effort. So again, that one is, when's the last time you were certain about a goal or a plan and what led to that certainty? Or number 2, play vision catcher for a forward-looking partner. This doesn't have to be somebody with futuristic. I want you to identify somebody who tends to be more creative than you. Spend some time with them and be the first person to endorse their visionary idea. I hope this can happen in the next week. I want you to be open to it as this vision catcher. But if it takes a little bit longer than that, your mission is to just look for a crazy idea and be the first person to endorse it.
Very good. You've got those challenges again at Strengths Talk on Instagram. We'll post them to Facebook. Actually, we're looking for more of the results on Facebook. So if you want to talk about those challenges in our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/called-to-coach is the way to get there as well. And there was a third way I was thinking of here just a second ago. Oh, they're in the blog post. So if you're listening to this after the fact, so we post them. We do some show notes for you on the actual blog post that's out there at coaching.gallup.com. They will be posted there as well. Maika, any final thoughts as we wrap this up and head into the post show?
So we said this in the chat group, but I just want to say it out loud here for people who are not live with us, that maybe instead of resilience, futuristic leads to presilience. So that sort of forward-looking, almost armor that guards you from the onslaught of today. This sort of idea that I'm going to be okay in the future.
Presilience. Thinking ahead on that, and really hope is we know from Shane's work that hope is so important in what we do, and we know it's part of our leadership work. It's part of our school work that we're doing, right? When we think about our school poll and some of the work we're doing in schools, I think we underestimate the ability for hope to change scenarios. And hope is really just a future outcome that hasn't happened yet. And I can't emphasize that enough, that we need to be hope casters, right? To use your word there. We need to be people, and I think people high in futuristic can be really good at this, and because they've thought about it. Like, I don't think about it, Mike. I make the stuff up as I go along, right? That's how I do it. But the strategic thinking that's available through futuristic really has the ability to influence through and to cast through this idea of I've thought through this, and I really appreciate that in people, and they have the ability then to give others hope through that thought. And I want to emphasize that enough. If you're high in this and you're not putting yourself in a situation where you can do that, whether it's through direct influence or be a thought leader or be on some kind of board or be in an area where you can actually do something with this, that would be my theme challenge to you this week, is go do something where you can. And I think you listed one of those in there would probably cover that, but go do something that matters, right? So, all right, I'll get off my soapbox.
You know what? Your soapbox is okay. You said you just do this as it comes up, as if that was something to throw away. But I think when your heart's in the right place, Jim, and you're skilled and you have enough knowledge to back it up, you can get away with just doing this off the cuff. And I'll save this for the post show, but I am very grateful that you do what you do in a place that you care about it so much, because you're better off the cuff, and we can trust you to be great because you come from the right place.
Yeah, super nice of you to say. I just happen to be in a good role that allows me to do this. We appreciate you guys coming out live. We'll remind everyone to take full advantages of all the resources we have available at the Gallup Strength Center. I was just talking with somebody today about some of the resources we have, and I was just reminding myself of everything that is available to you today out there. And there's just a ton. If you haven't visited in a while, you might want to. GallupStrengthsCenter.com. Log in. There's lots of great resources for you, including everything we do at the coaches blog. Like, if you haven't taken full advantage of the resource page that's on our coaches blog, go to coaching.gallup.com, click on the resource tab. If you haven't been out there in a while, it's completely different than what you've seen in the past. Lots of great resources for you, including some brand new ways of finding Theme Thursday and Called to Coach. Explore the page. There's lots of great stuff there for you. If you're interested in becoming a Gallup certified strengths coach, you can see a list of all of our courses that lead to that. Courses.gallup.com is available for you. We'll be making some announcements. We've been saying, you can, of course, get a discount on those if you come to the summit. And I can't guarantee there will be discounts next year for that, but you may want to think about that. It's next summer. If you're thinking futuristic and you're thinking, wow, maybe I'll come out next summer and get a course, there may be some availability for that as well.
And plug for that one. Take the courses at the summit. Not only are they usually cheaper, the people who are going to be your partners are just phenomenal. I got to take one of those courses, and it was just filled with the best coaches I think I've ever met.
It's a good time to be here and a good time to do it. CliftonStrengthsSummit.com. If you're at any time of the year, right now, there's not a lot there because we're still planning the 2019 summit, but maybe it's a little bit later or you're listening to this a couple years later. CliftonStrengthsSummit.com get you there as well. Speaking of the future, all of our future webcasts are available to come out and listen to live or even get the recorded versions of it. You can do that on our Eventbrite page, gallup.eventbrite.com. You can now follow us there as well. So if you want to get notifications of any time we update, that's available for you. Well, just sign in and click the follow button and you'll get those notifications. You can find us on Facebook, facebook.com/groups/called-to-coach if you're interested in being a guest blogger. And we take those requests as well. If you got something to say, 400 to 600 words, it's kind of what we're looking for. We want it to be strengths related, Clifton Strengths related. Send us an email, coaching@gallup.com. Put guest blogger in the subject line and what you've written, and we'll consider it for the coach's blog. I want to thank you for coming out. We'll do a little post show here right afterwards. If you haven't joined us live, you should try. I'm just saying. We'd love to have you come out here and get that done. With that, we'll say goodbye, everybody.